Sniping between President Trump and some members of his own party has now escalated into open warfare. Today, the president went to Capitol Hill to have lunch with Republican senators, but two of them issued stark warnings about the president's ability to lead. Arizona Republican Jeff Flake announced he won't run next year so he can freely speak out against Mr. Trump, calling him a threat to democracy. Nancy Cordes has more on this extraordinary day.
None of this is normal.
Arizona's Jeff Flake stood on the Senate floor, his voice quivering as he called the president indecent, reckless, and undignified.
When the next generation asks us, why didn't you do something? Why didn't you speak up? What are we going to say? Mr. President, I rise today to say enough.
The breadth of his condemnation was matched by a series of comments made by his GOP colleague, Bob Corker, earlier in the day.
The president has great difficulty with the truth on many issues.
Like Flake, Corker is retiring at the end of this term.
It's a sad place from my perspective for our nation, and I think that the worst of it is going to be just the whole debasing, if you will, of our nation.
Corker chairs the powerful Foreign Relations Committee. He said White House aides have repeatedly asked him to talk President Trump out of bad decisions.
You know, it's obvious his political model and governing model is to divide, and he has not risen to the occasion.
Mr. Trump once thought so highly of Corker, he considered him for vice president.
A great friend of mine, somebody respected by everybody, Senator Bob Corker.
But today, the president called Corker incompetent and a lightweight who couldn't get elected dog catcher in Tennessee.
When he gets hit, he's going to hit back, and I think Senator Corker knows that, and he's, maybe trying to get a headline or two on his way out the door.
That does not explain why other big-name Republicans have also recently slammed the president's politics and behavior.
Bigotry seems emboldened.
It all made for a tense lunch today between the president and Senate Republicans, who said the stated topic, tax reform, barely came up.
I don't have any observation about that. We're here.
After lunch, the Senate's top Republican wouldn't address the elephant in the room.
At what point do you have an obligation as a leader of this party to weigh in on these very serious criticisms of the president?
What I have an obligation to do is to try to achieve the greatest cohesion I can among 52 Republicans, to try to achieve for the American people the agenda that we set out to achieve. And tax reform is what we are about.
Flake argued his party has a duty to speak out.
I must say that we have fooled ourselves for long enough that a pivot to governing is right around the corner. I have children and grandchildren to answer to, and so, Mr. President, I will not be complicit or silent.
The president's allies were undaunted. In fact, the conservative outlet Breitbart cheered Flake's decision to retire after just one term. They said it was proof that Steve Bannon's strategy to force out vulnerable mainstream Republicans is working. Anthony?
Nancy Cordes with the latest episode of Family Feud. Thanks, Nancy.